Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm just going to discuss the origins of your religions. Basically I'm going to go deep into this stuff and show you guys some physical proof, not written in paper but in stone, that you can't chisel over and rewrite, about some of your biblical stories um, that's mentioned in your religion belief text. So I just basically want to share the origins of where all this stuff came from. This video, this guy's going to basically show you actual physical documents, historical accounts of the real Exodus story. Okay, I mean, not talking about fairy tale stuff, we're talking about real stuff. Alright, so let's go down a rabbit hole.
We have to use visual documentation to bring this back for other brothers and sisters to see it, because they may not never make it back like you. But there were many invasions that came into Africa. When Normer, that we dealt with earlier, we talked about Normer when he reunited Upper and Lower Egypt, first defeating Scorpion, bringing together the first world government. But it spoke of the Asiatic invasions. Even back during his time, Egypt faced many invasions that came in by way of the Delta. These were the Asiatics that you see right here. Now, as I mentioned before, the Asiatics who came across the Sinai. So here we see the earliest recording of these people who came in and settled with us for a while, till they built in numbers, and then eventually attacking Egypt. This is again from Khnumhotep's tomb from the 12th dynastic period, right during the time of Amenhotep III. Here again, Menethos talks about, now you can see the Hyksos who came into Egypt. And Menethos said, unexpectedly from the region of the east came men of unknown race. Confident of the victory, they marched against our land. By force they took it easy without a single battle. Having overpowered our rulers, they burned our cities without compassion and destroyed their temples. All the people were treated with great cruelty, for they slew some and carried off the wives and children of others into slavery. Doesn't that sound like a familiar account? This period is documented around 1650 or 1750, right around the same time of Abraham. Now, take a good look of the pictures that I showed earlier too. These were the Hyksos that you see right here. These were the invaders, just as you see them carved in stone right here. These are the people who came out of the Sinai. Some say from Mitanni, some say they were Hurrians. These are the Temerians who were indigenous to the Nile Valley, as well as the Tanihisian brothers who were further up in the southern part of Egypt, or Kemet, ancient Ethiopia as some would call it. These were the Tamahu people who invaded from Libya from the west. They attacked Egypt after the 6th dynastic period. Now, it was this brother that we showed again, Utmost I, who finally expelled them out of our land. Now I'm showing this in reference with the temple, how our ancestors, you're witnessing, recording these people who came into our land, who invaded until Utmost I finally expelled them. We want to give you documented evidence to show you that we were at war with these people who invaded our land. We did not have anyone enslaved, but in fact the Hyksos enslaved us for 200 years. If we deal with the 21st dynasty, 22nd dynasty, 23rd dynasty, these were all Asiatic. Shishak, that Badawi will show us in a little while, he was also of Asiatic origin. So again, indigenous African Kemetic people were not even on the throne then. This is why this is so important to understand this in the Bible, because by looking at the Bible in America and the Western world, they look at this as all being part of Egypt. Not saying that we were enslaved ourselves by these Asiatic people. And the same people who are ruling us today, who are exploiting us out of our minds, are the same people who invaded our land long ago, who came in even during the time of the 12th dynastic period, right after Amenhotep. And we called them the troglodytes who came out of the desert. How can we dispute this documented evidence, documented information? But the only way we're going to get this story right, we're going to have to start writing our own holy text, because if everybody else have had their story and revised the Bible, then why can't we, the original writers of the book, bring it back to its African origin? Now right here on these temples here, now you can see documented where we tied them up, wrote them, and forced them out of our land. These are the people that we've always had problems with. The problem is we don't understand a historical war.
So basically what these people find out is the truth started to come out, and these biblical characters are mainly, a lot of them are freaking Egyptian pharaohs. And they find a lot of their dead bodies buried in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Abraham, his body's found and buried in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Moses, another pharaoh.
war. It's a historical war with these people. And European Ashkenazi European Jews know this. We're the people who don't know it. It's an ancient historical war from the time we've had contact with them. So we're coming back here and hearing the words of our ancestors and those who knew what happened in that day, and that's why they had to turn the story against African people. So you're coming back for an eyewitness account, not for spiritual enslavement, but for spiritual freedom, for the emancipation of our souls, for the resurrection of African people.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. For many years, brothers and sisters returned back with us on the Kemet New Know Thyself educational tour to see an eyewitness account what our ancestors wrote for us on the temples and tombs, which are books in stone, that now end up in many of the biblical stories today. Let's continue with the live lecture. These are the people who enslaved our people. These people set up in an area of Kemet and Lower Kemet called Avaris, took over and were enslaving the Africans for over 200 years until Second Enrei Tao of the 17th dynasty, and it is he who waged war on the battlefield, and his life was lost on the battlefield, and it was his son, Thutmose, who continued the battle until his son, Thutmose, who opened up the 18th dynasty. This is a real person, brothers and sisters, who said never again. He was the liberator, the emancipator, who kicked these Hyksos out of our land. This is the...
So that picture that you just saw, that was in stone.
Real historical account that we've got to start teaching our people, brothers and sisters. So, they took from this...
That's the real Moses right there. Physical documents. Stone.
We can write here his name Thutmose and made a Moses. This is the only account that we expelled a large group of people out of our land, this African right here, who opened up the 18th dynasty known as the Golden Age. This is the historical account, brothers and sisters. In fact, let's go into another warrior soldier, as we see in his name, Men Kepara, Tahuti Mays. He had 17 battles and won them all. He also wanted to make sure that these Hyksos were not going to come into our land. Here you see Men Kepara's battle, showing where he's battling the Hyksos. Look at some of them hiding behind trees as cowards right here. This is the story that our ancestors left us in stone, as though they knew that one day we would forget our story. Here's the battle of Men Kepara, who battled and wanted to make sure these Hyksos were not going to come into our land. In fact, this brother, he made sure that he even educated these people he was conquering into the Kemetic history, okay, initiated them into make sure that they will keep control of people that they're conquering. So that brother was brilliant. In fact, he put a whooping on a city so bad called Megiddo. Do you know this is where the name Armageddon came from, Megiddo right here? That's where the origin of that name came from. But this is the brother, Ursama At Rasab Tepen Rala Mesumori Alman, a little practice you can say it too. He also had to fight some people called the Hittites. See, we're constantly at war with these people coming from the north, brothers and sisters. We left the reliefs over 3,000 years ago carved in stone. In fact, there's one story right here where Ursama Atra told his generals, he said, cut off the right hand of the enemy. But he noticed that the right hand and the left hand was turning up. He told them to cut off the right hand to make sure that they weren't cowards. So he said the enemy only has one thing I know they got, and that's the penis, the foreskin. So he told them to cut off the foreskin, and that's what you see right here, the foreskin right here. These are stories and accounts that's carved on these temples, brothers and sisters. Our story is here. Now, what does that have to do with the scriptures? Well, let's go to Samuel, and it talks about David wants to marry the daughter of Saul. So Saul tells him to go and do what? Cut off the foreskin of the Philistines, as it says in Samuel chapter 18, verse 27. Wherefore David arose and went, and he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men, and David brought their foreskins, and they gave them the full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. So here you got it written here in Saul, but long before Saul, our ancestors cut off the foreskin, where Mesu told his generals to cut off the right hand, and he noticed right and left hands were turning up, and he told them to cut off the foreskins, where it ended up in Saul in the Bible. What makes somebody who just put it on some paper versus that which is carved in stone? Spiritual enslavement.
Just like the book of Psalms in the Bible is written by King Tut's father. Most people don't know that. Let's look at another video.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products.
Why is that boat there?
All right, in this video, he's gonna break down the Noah's Ark story. Okay.
That boat was a spiritual, symbolic boat to symbolically to take Khufu back to the celestial now. What was the purpose of the celestial now? What you see behind me is not a spaceship that landed and happened and didn't make it back. Okay. What you see right there is the boat of Khufu. That is his solar boat. This boat is 140 feet long, longer than Captain Cook's boat. When this boat was excavated in 1954 in a pit, over 1,200 pieces, the boat was dismantled. And they took 1,200 pieces to reconstruct this boat of Khufu. Now, what was the purpose of this boat? This boat was called the Nuank. What is the Nuank? What was the Nuank? The flooding of the Nile was called the Nuank. Now, when the Nile flooded, it was Khufu who realized that he could take his solar astro journey through the Nile to the celestial Nile, that was the Milky Way, to take him back to his father, Asar. So the Milky Way was looked at as the celestial Nile, like the earthly Nile. So it was the Nuank that took him back. That was the purpose of his boat. That later it was corrupted into Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was taken from the Nuank. This is where it came from.
Another story out of Egypt. I mean, we in the age of Aquarius, the truth is coming out. No more hiding. All truth shall be revealed. So a lot of us been played for fools for quite some time because our parents didn't have the what? The proper knowledge. But it's not their fault, you know, they didn't have like the internet. But you do.
Nowhere are you going to find no Noah's Ark. If you were back at the time of 4,000 years ago or during the time of Khufu and you asked him about Noah, boy, what's wrong with you? Know nothing about no Noah. You see my boat here? This is where the story came from. The flood, the great flood. There were many floods. There was the flood of Zoser. It was Zoser during the time when he commissioned to Khnum into Upper Kemet to let the flood waters of the Nuank come back to flood the land, because here you see the drought took place, and Khnum said, you have not given recognition to your homeland, the south, Upper Egypt. And then we see Khnum let the flood waters open up. This is where we get the story. This information is not given to no one here but you, because you got a whole different reason for being back here. And that is to tell the truth. We want the truth and nothing but the truth. That's what we want here. You see? It's a new day. Something is opening up here. It's a spiritual consciousness. So you were looking at the Nuank, where the Noah's Ark came from. The Nuank. That's the origin. Now they got it encased in this casing here. That boat was a spiritual, symbolic boat to symbolically to take Khufu back to the celestial Nile. What was the purpose of the celestial Nile? The celestial Nile symbolically took him back to his spiritual father and first father, that was Asar. So here you see the inundation of the Nile connected with the Milky Way. This was called the Nuank. The flooding of the Nile was called the Nuank. And that was the purpose of Khufu's boat, was symbolically and spiritually was to take him back to his spiritual father. And that was during the inundation. So when the nuance took place, that spiritually told us that we would connect to the Milky Way, that nuance was corrupted to Noah's Ark. We got the boats, brothers and sisters. Here's the boat right here. If you went back over 4,000 years ago in the fourth dynastic period and asked Khufu about Noah, boy, what's wrong with you? I don't know nothing about Noah. Here's my boat right here. Here's all the animals of the world doing the number one, number two, and everything. They just tell us any kind of story. That's why they can.
I mean, you gotta think about it. You know, let's be realistic. I mean, you got these animals all in the boat. Where do we gotta have tons of food? Then they're pissing their shit all over the wood. I mean, come on, eventually that we're gonna start buckling up, okay? Real talk. You know, we just gotta, think more logical here. Start, like I said, we gotta learn to be scientific and spiritual. So we started to see these Egyptian people were very spiritual. That was their whole way of life. They were very spiritual. They didn't have to work. Money didn't exist until not too long ago. People just lived together as a community, as a team. They had occupation, had things to do. But life was pretty different back in the day, before this darkness took over the earth. So let me see. Let's look into another video, more proof, for more evidence.
What is the real story of January 6th? Many people have asked that question. Some people have described it.
Now that's Wallace Budge. So here, again, the Europeans with Justinian and the boys Theodosius, they came in. Yeah, right?
Okay, that's the Ankh right there, right? Represents the key to life. It's also shaped like the female reproductive organs, okay? Let me show you.
That's why the Europeans with Justinian and the boys Theodosius, they came in, they tried to chisel it out. Couldn't deal with the real Immaculate Conception, but they weren't talking about one Immaculate Conception. Our ancestors were telling us on these releases that every woman could produce an Immaculate Conception provided that she was on the spiritual level and the man was on the spiritual level. The both of them coming together produced Immaculate Virgin Birth, which means a clean birth. But notice they chiseled out the top part of it because that represents the womb. But the other part they kept there to represent the crucifix. You see? That symbol that they didn't take or didn't chisel out was a symbol of the cross. They didn't chisel that one out. So this is another picture of Constantine. Constantine's vision of the cross, which he is praying to this symbol, Sec Vincius. In this symbol we shall conquer. Through this symbol we shall conquer.
Constantine, okay, a lot of people say Constantine is the founder of what? Christianity, where did that word come from? Constantine is a Roman.
Supposedly, Constantine got the cross out on the battlefield. Another picture, but now that we know that Constantine came here, now we know where, in fact, Constantine got the cross from. Huh? Right off of your ancestor temples. Has nothing to do with, this is blowing here, has nothing to do with no crucifixion or human sacrifice. Europeans corrupted it. Now we have no understanding or meaning of what the cross means today. And chisel out the Ankh, which was a symbol for life.
More physical proof. Let's look at this video right here. Let's look at the real Moses.
ancients called Hyksos. Most famous for expelling a foreign nation from Egypt around 1500 BCE. Most famous for expelling a foreign nation from Egypt around 1500 BCE. At the time, Egypt was ruled by a people that the ancients called Hyksos. Didn't mention Moses, and we stressed that we were interested in Pharaoh Ahmose and the Hyksos he drove out of Egypt.
Bible, the story of the Semites.
So basically, the whole Exodus story that they show you on TV and your Bible, which they tell you is accurate, but you're seeing physical proof that it has been tampered with, right? And basically, what they are not telling people is the Egyptians were enslaved by the invaders from the north for almost 200 years. And then they're not telling you that Moses was an Egyptian called Moses the first.
Leaving Egypt and going eastward from Egypt. At the same time, independent of the Bible, we have a story of the Hyksos being expelled from Egypt. I think definitely the two stories are related. They're describing the same event from different viewpoints. The story of the Semites leaving Egypt and going eastward from Egypt. At the same time, independent of the story of the Hyksos being expelled from Egypt. I think definitely the two stories are related. They're describing the same event from different viewpoints. Being expelled from Egypt. Being expelled from Egypt.
There's Moses right there in the horse. That's Moses fighting these invaders from the north that enslaved the Egyptians right here. Documented in stone. Not on paper. So this is your Exodus. The invaders from the north were kicked out of Egypt and went to the land called Canaan.
From Egypt. Expelled from Egypt. I think definitely the two stories are related. They're describing the same event.
And the Hyksos expulsion is what we're talking about when we are talking about the Exodus. The Hyksos. And the Hyksos expulsion is what we're talking about when we are talking about the Exodus. If the Hyksos expulsion and the biblical Exodus are really one and the same event. If the Hyksos expulsion and the biblical Exodus are really one and the same event. If the Hyksos expulsion and the biblical Exodus are really one biblical Exodus, 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 are really one and the same event.
Do you remember the days of slavery?
No, I'm doing enough.
More proof again. Stuff you can't not debunk. That's your Exodus story. Ain't nobody throwing magic wands out here. They was fighting the old-fashioned way through combat with swords and bows and arrows. Okay? I mean, you really have to use your discernment out here, people. I don't care what it is. There's the only way to prevent this. When I found this stuff, I was too happy. I was pissed. I ain't gonna lie. My ego got bruised. It's like, man, this whole time I was buying into this and that. Like I said, not our parents' fault. They did not have the internet, but, we have the opportunity to come out of this mess. When you start waking up, you start walking away from some of these religion belief systems that you're part of, so people might not understand it, and they might try to shun you, because I know I've been through it. With some of my own family members out here, like, hey, I'm not trying to deal with this religion belief stuff. Like, I talk about Egypt, this, oh, you're a demon, you're a damn demon. I've been called that. And I just say, hey, forgive them for they know not what they do. Get out of your ego and look into what I'm trying to say. But you probably don't want to look into it because you might be upset that you've been played for fool too. And you don't want to hear that. You got some people waking up to this stuff and they up there, somebody was on the news some years back, somebody shot up a church because they woke up to this truth. They were mad because they bruised their ego. Some people have big egos. Bruise their ego and some people pissed off. But you know what you can do is say, okay, you got me, but make sure it doesn't happen again. Is what I do. It's like I just start studying. It's the only thing you can do. You gotta learn how to play chess out here, not checkers in this world. You know how to come out of that. Let's look at this video. More proof for the real Exodus.
As the Bible story continues,
Let's go.
God promises Jacob that a nation and a company of nations shall come from him, and kings will spring from him. Symbolic stone where the Hebrew Jacob laid his head thousands of years ago in Bethel is alternately called the Stone of Jacob, the Stone of Destiny, and the Stone of Scone. Today, the symbolic stone can be found underneath the British throne chair on top of the symbolic step pyramid where the Queen and other British monarchs have been crowned.
The battered oak coronation throne, on which every English monarch has been crowned, is built over the Stone of Scone.
As the Bible story continues, God promises Jacob that a nation and a company of nations shall come from him, and kings will spring from him. Jacob marries 2 of his girl cousins and fathers 12 sons. As Jacob ages...
First of all, there's no such thing as the letter J in the Hebrew alphabet. There's a Y, so Jacob's name couldn't have been Jacob. His name was Yaqub. Another Egyptian pharaoh.
Joseph becomes his favorite son, and Dan becomes his venomous son. Jacob eventually takes his sons and his Hebrew clan and migrates from Canaan into Egypt. This Hebrew migration into Egypt closely parallels Egyptian history when the Semitic Hyksos migrants overthrew the Egyptian pharaohs and seized the throne of Egypt. One of the Semitic Hyksos leaders who became king of Egypt...
So yeah, basically that's when Egypt was enslaved for over, almost 200 years. And their leader was this guy right here. Yaqub. Some people call him Yaqub. In the Bible they called him Jacob.
Egypt was Yaquber. Since Yaquber is the Aramaean name for Jacob, Egyptology experts interpret this as factual evidence that the biblical Jacob and the Hyksos king Yaquber were one and the same.
No matter what the weak heart say, and I know that I and I is like a tree that planted by the river of water, and not even the dog that piss against the wall of Babylon shall escape this judgment. For I and I know what, I know that all of you shall witness the day that Babylon shall fall, Babylon shall fall, Babylon shall fall.
Nowhere the won't be too long now. Nowhere the won't be too long.
Now they took in Egypt, they call it Amen Ra, right? Amen. Okay, they took the word Amen and changed it to Amen in your Bible.
All of the sufferings and wrong soon will be right. Oh yeah, yeah.
You're Solomon.
Keep the faith, my brothers and sisters.
Abraham. Virgin Mary, there you go. That's all said in her rule. Constantine called him Horus.
So seek ye good and not evil. Oh, I beg you, my brethren, and cheer up, cheer up, cheer up.
Dreadlocks. There's Aunt Moses on the horse, defending Egypt, who was enslaved. It's the invaders.
Lest the wrath you call down on yourselves be too dread for even you to bear. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
So there you have it. I mean, this is physical documents. Let's look at some ancient Egyptians' laws of the seven. Where they getting these laws from?
Introducing Astapro, steroid-free allergy relief that starts working.
Video is called Ancient Kemet and the Law of Seven. Ancient Kemet, or Egypt much later on, was the basis of all philosophical and spiritual teachings, all belief systems. The Greeks studied in Kemetic temples, and the Romans eventually learned from the Greeks. Numerology was very important in Kemet. The number 7 represented
If a feather, there's a heart on a scale.
Much later on, the Holy Bible stated that Almighty God rested on the 7th day after completion. In ancient Kemet, there were 7 cardinal principles or virtues of the goddess Mayet to achieve human perfection. Number 1 was truth, based in fact with honesty and integrity. 2 was justice, a state of fairness and lawful judgment. 3 was righteousness, a state of consistent good conduct. 4, reciprocity, what goes around comes around. 5, balance, an equal distribution of weight. 6, the correct sequence of thought and action. 7, harmony, one accord, a pleasing arrangement. Kemet was the home of the first
See the
mystery
original and the
school.
copy?
The Kemetic belief systems taught that...
Yeah, that's the originals. This stuff is older than 6,000 years. You know, it's a 10,000-year-old civilization. Now, some people's history goes back 6,000 years, and it's a cutoff switch. Now, some people been on this planet for so long they can't even tell how long some people been on this planet. Okay, look into that. Don't take my word on it.
That there were 7 stages or ages of man before completion of his life cycle: infancy, boyhood, youth, manhood, middle age, old age, and death. They taught that every human possessed 7 senses, not 5: hearing, touch, sight, taste, smell, intuition, clairvoyance. In Kemetic temples, where the Greeks were students, including Plato, Pythagoras, most people say Jesus, they taught 7 liberal arts, which is the basis of the current worldwide system. The 7 courses were grammar, arithmetic, rhetoric, dialect, geometry, astronomy, and music. The ancient Hermetic principles gave rise to the 7 Hermetic principles, which are the basis of all Hermetic philosophy. Number 1 being the principle of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental. Number 2, the principle of correspondence, as above, so below as above. Number 3, the principle of vibration, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Number 4, the principle of polarity, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Number 5, the principle of gender, everything is gender, gender is everything. Number 6, the principle of rhythm, everything flows in and out, everything has its tides, its ebbs and flows. Number 7, the principle of cause and effect, every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. Now, much later in modern times, these 7 cardinal principles that were used to achieve human perfection were turned to the 7 deadly sins: sloth, lust, anger, pride, envy, gluttony, greed. You see the 7 stages of grief: shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, acceptance. So what is the law of 7 and how does it relate? Well, it was an ancient cosmic law that was known in Kemet, but lost in history, only to be found much later. Now we must remember that everything in its purest form is energy. Energy is frequency. Frequency is a number. All is numbers. Remember, Pythagoras said that. Frequency is waves. Waves is the number of oscillations. The law of 7, or the law of the sevenfold development of energy, is considered the first fundamental and cosmic law of the universe and repeats on all levels of creation. The basis of the law of 7 explains why nothing in the universe, nature, or life occurs in a straight line. Everything must deviate at definite intervals, meaning through life in all of the universe there are ups and downs that happen lawfully. This law is expressed as the symbol of the enneagram, real similar to the Volkswagen symbol. Now, if you're familiar with the law of one, Ra did not consider Earth a dimension. He called it an octave, meaning we are all tied into the same frequency. In order to understand the full meaning of this law, it is necessary to regard the universe as consisting of vibrations. If something vibrates at 1,000 vibrations a second, and if the frequency increases to 2,000 vibrations a second, this period is an octave. When the law of 7 is applied to music, the period is divided into 7 notes and a repetition of the first note. The major octave.
See how we like literally connected to the universe, but that's why I prefer to call God the universe, because it's, it just makes sense. I mean, all that stuff out there in space, we can't be disconnected from it. We have to be connected to it. And when I come across some people say, "Oh, I don't believe in God," well, let's call it the universe. So if you tell me all that stuff out there in space and it's just for looks and what's created by microorganisms, you need to get you some help. What's the odds of that sun and that moon being where it's at too? That's some type of higher consciousness, like Earth is like a school here. It's like a big playground, part of an experiment. Let's see what happens. We put souls on the planet, wipe their memories out of who they are on a soul level, and give them free will. And then this is what we end up with. A hot mess.
Octave is really a picture or a formula of cosmic law, because in the common arrangements with one octave, there are 2 moments when octaves slow down by themselves. Vibrations do not develop regularly. In the major octave, this is shown by the missing semitones. This is a beautiful picture of cosmic law. But this law is not restricted just to music. This law is necessary to understand because it's reflected in all aspects of creation. If there was no law of 7, everything in the world would go directly to its final conclusion. But because of the law of octaves, everything deviates. This is shown in nature. If it rains, it wouldn't stop. Lightning and thunder, earthquakes would go on indefinitely. Floods wouldn't stop. But they do stop because of the law of 7. At every missing semitones, things deviate. They do not go by straight lines. A perfect system working harmoniously. And this is Plato's music of the spheres. This law is reflected in our day-to-day lives as well, and it's deeply tied to our psychology, how we think and act, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. So it's very important to understand this law. And I know it can be a somewhat confusing concept, but I just wanted to introduce it. I hope this was informative. In a nutshell, everything deviates, nothing goes in a straight line. Life has its ups and downs, and it's lawfully, believe it or not. But thank you guys for watching. This was Hidden America.
Yeah, there you have it, A lot of information been lost. Let me show you some books that I got that I would highly recommend. More proof that Christ in Egypt. Look, more proof. I got one of these books right here. It's the book I have. Christ in Egypt. It's a good book. Another book that I have is this Signs and Symbol book. Good book too. Let's see, I got another book called Christianity and an Ancient Egyptian Religion. It's the book I have right here. Pretty good book. Pretty cheap. More proof that stories came out of Egypt. Another book I got is called Out of Egypt. The Roots of Christianity Revealed. got this book right here. It's a good book. I got that book too. I got this book right here. Egyptian Origins of King David. Got that book. Got this book right here too. Yeah, I got that. Let's see, another book I got is another good book. Yeah, I got this book right here, Spirituality Before Religion. Now, what does the word religion mean? Well, in the old dictionary, the word religion means practicing something on a continuous basis. You know, this is what I do religiously, like diligently. You know, it's kind of like, hey, I practice, let's say, karate religiously. Okay, now if you Google what the word religion means, it's not going to mean that. They change the meanings of the words around quite a bit. That's why it's called English Etymology Dictionary. Etymology means understanding the meanings of words and how the words could change as time continue on. So that's why you gotta get the old books, the old dictionary, because the new stuff is going to be different. Remember, people write books out here, not ghosts. Let me see another book that I like that's pretty good too. The Egyptian Book of the Dead. You know, which one I got? I got this. No, I got this one right here. Yeah, it's a good book. It's pretty big. They got actual pictures of it from Egypt and stuff like that. It's a pretty good book. And I got this dictionary. Yeah, I got this right here. It's the what I got right here. Yeah, to help you break down, you know, what these words means, and you know, 'cause a lot of people misinterpreted these things written in the Bible. Now, what does metaphysical mean? Metaphysical mean? It's basically related to the part of philosophy that deals with the existence and knowledge. Metaphysical questions about nature of the universe. Just like when people ask me what's my religion, I say, well, first of all, the word religion means something you practice on a continuous basis in the old dictionaries, right? So I guess you could say I practice cosmology on a continuous basis. So what does cosmology mean? It means basically understanding how the universe works and everything that exists within it. You know, it just doesn't get any hardcore than that. And as you could clearly see from the videos I showed you, when it comes to religion, you know, the way people used to think back in the day, they were all about, you know, a lot of stuff is based off of astrology, the human anatomy, nature, you know, chemistry, math, you know, alchemy, which means transformation. You know, we talking about realistic stuff here. You know, geography, you know, this is what people practice on a continuous basis. Now let's look into how many different religion belief systems there are. 4,000 different types of that are consistent. Where did they get all their stories from? Let's go back to the original, you know, source of all this shows you. The Eye of Horus. Constantine called them Horus. This is going back to Egypt again. It goes back to what? The human anatomy. Okay, you see the eye of Horus represents the pineal gland located in the center of the brain. That's what this stuff represents. And, you know, that's your third eye. Symbolically, the third eye. Why does it look like why they call it a pineal gland? Because it's shaped like a pine cone. It's about the size of a raisin. Some people call it the third eye. You all see an eye. because it has a red to it like your physical eyes does now. And you're putting fluoride all in your water up in here to block that out. So how do you open it up? Well, you can do meditation. You can definitely get some filtered water. Shower filter, tub filters, all that. You go on Amazon and get that. They don't sell them in stores. They don't really sell good stuff in stores. You don't know if you noticed that. And you can stare at the sun when it's like setting and rising only. It's easier in your eyes. It can help decalcify it and activate it more. So when you walking around with your third eye open, it's like you're no longer walking around here with 3D glasses. You're able to see reality for what it truly is. Let's look at the Ankh. The Egyptian Ankh doesn't look bad to me. Check that out. See, reproductive system shaped like the womb of a woman. They call it the womb of a woman. The Stargate. In order for your physical body to be born into this world, it has to go through what? The womb of the woman, through the Stargate. And there's your cross. There's nothing evil about that. Nothing wicked. You see, they try to tell you to stay away from this stuff because it's good stuff. They tell you it was evil and demonic. Yeah, the Egyptians were very spiritual. Where do you think stories came from? Let's look into the 42 laws of the Egyptian Mayet. Remember, people create these rules out here, laws and regulations, guys. 42 laws of the Egyptian Mayas. It's like for instance, that Constitution for the United States. I mean, that was written by people like you and me, not the Holy Ghost. You understand what I'm saying? Here's the 42 laws of the Egyptian Mayet. This is Egypt, the heart is symbolic. It's a heart, and there's a feather. That's where you get the thing to get the concept of these justice skills in your court system. It got out of Egypt again. See right here, the heart has to weigh as light as a feather before you leave this world, before you leave the earth school, graduate from your school. Your heart has to weigh as light as a feather. Okay? If your heart doesn't weigh as light as a feather, you're not ready to graduate from your school. You still have some type of karmic lesson to learn here and debts to be paid off. It's symbolic. There's no brains on them scales. There's a heart, there's a feather. Okay, there's no brains on them scales. Your heart does a lot. Heart symbolically is the key to the soul. It tells you everything about a person. Hell, some of y'all don't even have a freaking heart to even put on the scales. Then we got the Library of Alexandria. The Library of Alexandria. That's there's a library over in Egypt. That a Roman named Caesar destroyed, burnt that joker down. So we lost a lot of information. I guess they had to get rid of that, and these dark forces had to get rid of that in order for this religion belief stuff to take a chokehold on you guys mentally. Yeah, it had to go. It had to go. It would never work. Julius Caesar. Got rid of that. Let's see, I want to show you guys where the letter J came from. Remember, I told you the letter J didn't even exist around biblical times. So why are you calling Jesus Jesus? There's a reason why they call him Yahshua, because the letter J didn't even exist. But your Bible accurate though. But here we go, more and more issues. I'm showing you proof who created the letter J. Okay, around the 1500s. Alright. More illusions. Cosmology. Yeah, I know a lot of this stuff really make you, angry or whatever, You got a lot of people walking away from this religion belief stuff. I mean, I believe in God, the creator, the most high, the universe, whatever you want to call it out here. But I'm just glad I never got stuck, caught up in this religion belief stuff. Because when you start waking up to this stuff, it really pisses you off. It's like, wow, this whole time I've been played. Yeah, you just have to use your discernment. Many people, if you check out some videos on YouTube, why some people walked away from this religion belief stuff, everybody has their own reasons. Somebody said I just walked away because I was trying to ask questions to the preacher about some stuff in the Bible, and somebody told me, "Ooh, don't ask questions, you're gonna burn in hell or something." That's like, that turned me off. I just stopped messing with it. I just wanted to be a Christian because it was in my family. It was a family thing. But now I'm thinking, why would you want to put fear into me for asking questions? Turn them off. And then they said they came across Buddhism, and Buddha was ascended master like Yahshua, y'all call Jesus out here. He said, we welcome questions. How else can you learn? How else can you grow? And this person said, I like that. I felt comfortable with that. So they said I became Buddhist. Some people walked away from this religion belief so they wasn't growing. You see what I'm saying? But you can't be out here trying to wake people up to this stuff. And I know some people are trying to do that. So you gotta leave it alone. They say what you gotta say. And some people don't want to hear it because they have a war going on in their brains right now. Like, you tell me this whole time I've been bamboozled. Yeah. We got egos here. EGO. I mean, you can't force people to wake up. Everybody wakes up in their own divine timing. Just like not every peach ripens at the same time. So yeah, that's all I have to say in this video, guys. And yeah, I'll see you later. I don't know when I'm gonna post up another video, but I just wanted to share that information with you guys. I know it's which people have the right to know the truth.